Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Intent to Injure Week 6 Recap Podcast. Your host, once again, Eric Zaleski, alongside Austin Revito. Welcome back to yet another podcast here. Initially, we were only going to do these kind of bi-weekly, but it's kind of turned into a weekly thing, which is fun. Two things I want to get out of the way before we get started. First, our sponsors. Rock and Refuel, the official protein drink of the Intent to Injure League. Revito doesn't know how to...
Usually if you hit space...
Drink early, drink often.
Usually...
Sorry that he interrupted your advertisement, Rock and Refuel.
Oh, and we also have Muscle Tech, hashtag Shatter. This is icy... This is called Blue Raspberry Explosion. 3 scoops for all your jittery and rash-infested needs. And we had a salad today at Chipotle with tofu. It was actually pretty good. It was decent. And then we chipped ourselves out. We had some chips.
Second thing I want to get to before we jump into the recaps here, people have to be wondering what is going on with your head. Since we have to keep this to 30 minutes, I got to be at practice here shortly. Give them, and I know this is hard for you, give them the brief version of what happened.
Okay.
Brief.
So it was not Ebola.
It may be Ebola.
It's not Ebola. So I was going to worked all week. I had to work Saturday. There was a fight night, UFC 80, Velasquez versus Hunt. And I was not about to miss Ricardo Lamas versus Dennis Bermudez. So we were going up to Buffalo Wild Wings post-work. The Penguin game had just ended, to give you a time frame. For the first time. And then they did the off-the-post thing. Got to Buffalo Wild Wings. I was in work, a suit, so I wanted to change into jeans and this actual half-zip. And the other friends went into Buffalo Wild Wings in Washington, and I picked up a light trot to go in across the parking lot. It was actually pretty crowded for the fight. And I heard, and I quote, said in context, "Hey, fucker," or no, it was "fuck you, bitch." And I looked to the right, my right, computer left, and there was a man a little bit taller than I am, a lot larger than I am, who was getting pretty aggressive with a woman, and who seemed to be his girlfriend. One thing led to another. He reached for her cell phone. She seemed to be texting somebody. He didn't want her, or vice versa. And he ended up striking her in the face with his left hand across the right eye, like so, crunch. And so I broke into a very sprinted trot and tackled him, and we got into a fist fight. It was all over in about 10 seconds. This was from the punch/dive. The one up here was from the concrete dive. And the knuckle has a tooth impression in it. And that was it. And then the police came. The manager said, "We really appreciate it. That was, noble," or whatever. And I had to tell the police what happened, and I got free wings.
Well, and I have to only speculate that this was a result of you being really amped up. This UFC kick that you're on, you're claiming you're going to take classes now.
Yeah, it's fun.
The result of you being maybe too amped up to get in there and see the fights, you just have to kind of get in the action yourself.
Yeah. So this is the 6th straight pay-per-view that I've viewed, and I'm a big fan of the American fighters. Most of them are wrestlers. Some of them I've trained with before, in high school and college. So I actually know personally some of these people, and I hadn't been on any stims. I was on stims Friday. I lifted, but it was maybe the worst lift I've had in a year. It was a really bad lift. The stims felt like they didn't even work. I was so tired it had a flipped effect. It actually made me more tired, so I didn't even want to work out. And then Saturday I only had 1 Red Bull at noon, so I was on no stim. So it was crazy. But I felt stimmed afterwards. I felt stimmed up, and then I got some. I actually went with I got medium. I got really bland medium wings.
That's unlike you.
It is.
Very unlike you.
They got the fries though.
And I'm sure you know this. Boss, I'm just looking over who's in the league, who's into UFC. Boss is really into it. And then I think Mendelssohn's into it as well, if I'm not mistaken.
I did not know Boss was into it.
That's the guy you want to talk to. He will talk to you all night, whether you want to talk or not about UFC. That's his thing. He loves it.
Phone me, Jakey Boo.
So that's where you're at right now.
Yeah.
I'm a noodle. I'm sick. I've been sick every month this year, so we're just keeping the trend going.
Yeah. Ebola is effervescent.
I took
omnipresent.
I felt as it usually occurs during Sunday Night Football. It seems like every time I get sick, I'm watching Sunday Night Football. You can feel a little bit in the throat. I went over to grab some Airborne, which you told me is a hoax.
It's the biggest. Yeah. Go ahead.
I still drink it anyways. Like I said, in my head, whether it's actually working or not, in my head, I like to think that it is. But here I am, sick once again, 11th time this year, headache through the roof. But we're in a Jordan flu game this one. We're just gonna power through it.
Okay.
I have decided, just while you were talking over the last minute, let's do kind of like what we did when we did our car podcast, where we just kind of give the winners. It says right here who the top scorers were. Then we can kind of assess the records. We won't dive into too much in depth.
Right.
We can talk a little more about just kind of life in general and the National Hockey League.
Let's make a point not to click the quick box score on any matchup.
Yeah, because that ends up taking the podcast to really probably another 20 minutes there.
So I'm gonna pull an Eric. I'm gonna pull the prices or a Talkus Book Service and get my matchup out of the way quickly.
Yeah, no, that's good.
I don't know what happened this week. I had a real pooper.
So you came in. It was well documented, undefeated, 5-0.
Yeah.
And you were going up against the real deal Niels, Robbie Wright. And you got lapped, brother. The week low.
Almost triple lap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. The final score 162.4 to 67.4. I mean,
I pulled a lollipop guild.
You did here, and I mean, to your defense. If you're going to lose a game, you might as well just get it all out of your system.
Might as well get BTFO'd.
This was one of those weeks. Now let me ask you this. Is this your team finally coming back down to earth, or is this just an off week?
I did not have this. I have a bone to pick with the Sharks. They suck at even strength scoring. It's like a joke. They can only score in the power play. And nothing was going to help me this week. Robbie went bananas.
It didn't matter.
But yeah, it wouldn't have mattered regardless. It would have been nice to put up a little bit more of a respectable number, but I'm totally okay with it. I had the head-to-head against John, which I found out about 25 seconds ago.
Yeah.
So
we'll jump into that.
Realized that I'm still in first place. I would need to go on a fantasy football slide like I have had this year to come back down to earth. Jamie Benn kind of just did a poo-poo week. I don't think I got a win out of any goal. Oh, no, I got a win yesterday out of my Flames goalie and Tokarski, but whatever.
Well, that's what I mean. When I say your team's kind of coming back down to earth, you're playing a little bit shorthanded with, you don't have goalies that you play every day. We've talked about it in the past, how you stream goalies. So that's good news for you.
And Hiller's been great. So now I do have two legitimate number ones.
So you're keeping those two. You're not going to be jumping around as much?
No, I'll still. So last night I picked up Aaron Eck. I picked up a couple people yesterday, and I got to drop. So at a certain point, I figured that points are going to matter in this. So I picked up Tokarski last night. I got a good win out of Montreal, but now I do have two starting goalies. Hiller, he's 7-4 with the Flames, and Bobrovsky, who's a number one, but Columbus is a disaster.
Yeah,
So will I still be streaming goalies on days and be using every? All 7 of my matchup acquisitions? Absolutely. Maximize your opportunity to get points. But this was a bad week. Moving on.
Well, and let's give Robbie Wright a little credit before we do so.
I was trying to avoid that.
Well, came into this 2-3 on the year, and it's rare you see a game that features the week high and the week low at the same time. Robbie Wright did have the week high this week. He had it by almost 20 points. We said the number already, 162.4. A big week for him. His leading scorer out of Rick Nash. There's a guy, and I said it in the preseason, that you're getting great value. I think he was the 110th pick overall. So you're getting great value out of that guy. I don't think anybody could have expected the type of contributions that he's brought to the real deal Niels to this point, but that's a guy, he's a proven goal scorer, and he's at least been able to prove that he's been able to do it over the course of his career during the regular season. We always talk about how he's
sucks
not a
in the
big game
playoffs.
player, but
Yeah.
that's all you're looking for here in fantasy. So a big win for Robbie Wright. He moves up to 3-3. You drop down to 5-1. We already mentioned it. You technically are still in first place despite being tied with Madonna Auto Goal, and we'll jump to his matchup next. You guys are both 5-1, and we noticed that Madonna Auto Goal actually has more points for in the regular season. So we were kind of thinking, why are you still above him? Then we remembered you guys played head to head, and you won that game. So that's the first tiebreaker. I'm sure if that is tied at the end of the year, that they probably default to points for.
Yeah. I think that's a good tiebreaker, though.
Yeah, no,
I'd rather that than the points.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So that's something to keep in mind moving forward, because I'm sure a situation like that is going to arise once again in the future. But Madonna Audible came into this one 4-1, going up against the Odd Man Out,
Is that your foot?
who was 2-3. It is not my foot. Madonna Audible with another big win here, 145.5 to 133.1 over Kurt. And starting with the Odd Man Out, a team that we've given a lot of praise to, a lot of credit over the course of the 6-week season so far, and here he is sitting at 2-4.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he got on the struggle bus a little bit here. He had a good week. He more or less would have beat anyone. Yeah, he would have beat anyone else except Robbie.
Yeah, that's a good point. 133.1. That is a nice week, and like we just said with your matchup, if you're going to lose, you'd almost rather get just crushed.
Oh, yeah, I like that.
This is kind of a tough way to go down. You get some good performances out of your guys, or team's clicking, but they ran into a hot team, Madonna Auto Goal, and that's been the case for most teams so far this year. Top scorer for Johnny was Max Pacioretty, 21.8, a nice week.
Maxi Boo.
And the Habs are heating up, are they not?
They are.
I saw Price was one of the 3 stars of the week. That's a guy I shipped off early in the season. I'm glad he's producing for Brent. And for the Odd Man Out, Philippe Forsberg, is that his name?
Philippe, whatever you want to call him. He's Swedish, so call him what you want.
Yeah, 17.8 for him. And where is he at now? Is he in Nashville?
Mm-hmm. He's good. He's actually probably like their best player.
He was a big prospect for the Capitals, correct? And then he was traded for like the Rat.
Yeah, he was traded for the Rat and the Black. The Rat and the Black.
Well, yeah, I mean,
I feel like that's a decent. If you ever have the opportunity to get your hands on a Black in the NHL, it's not the worst theory. And we had LaRock.
You figure if they're there for a reason, and
right.
They tend to actually be pretty good.
Right.
But that's neither here nor there. A big win for Johnny, who bumps up to 5-1. The Odd Man Out down to 2-4. Now over to a couple of childhood friends going at it in this one. Sam Mendelson, the Jonathan Quickies, versus Colin Fawcett, Cologne Al, in a game that came down to really the wire here on the last night. The Jonathan Quickies pulling away, getting a win, 117.7 to 112.9 over Cologne Al. This will put Mendelson at 4-2, Fawcett at 3-3 on the young season. So an interesting development. So far this year, every time we've talked about the Quickies, we've talked about Patrick Hornquist. Wanted to get your thoughts on the recent line changes in Pittsburgh, putting Hornquist on that second line with Malkin and moving Duper up back to his old line with his old buddies Crosby and Kunitz.
I don't really like it. Like, why mess around with something that's like, it was nearly unstoppable. I don't know. I've never been a Bo Bennett fan. I never will be. I can't be convinced to be a Bo Bennett fan. When someone has wrist surgery and openly says, I had to relearn how to shoot a puck because it hurts when I do it, like how I was used to, it's just like, to me, it's like, okay, so this guy's playing on your second. There's a difference between Bo Bennett, an unproven, third-year player now, who's played maybe 100 total games in the NHL, versus like Crosby saying, okay, my wrist hurts. It's like, I trust Crosby a lot more than I trust Bo Bennett. And I think it's a waste. I think that second line was playing really well. Malkin can complain, but he hasn't. Here, he could B&M all he wants about not having a top scoring winger, blah, blah, blah. But they're playing so well. Why mess around with it? I understand Bo Bennett was going to get back in the lineup, but to completely shuffle everything, like, put him on the third line. Well, the third line was playing great. I mean, Downey, Spalling, Sutter, or Como, Spalling, or Como, Sutter, Downey, however you wanted to do it. I don't know. Like, just Bo Bennett's never done anything for me to be like, wow, he really deserves top 6 minutes. Ever.
Well,
ever. Never, ever.
Do you realize that he really wasn't playing on that as a top 6 the last few games? They had Spalling up there for the majority of the game.
Right, but their entire plan is to get him on that second line.
Right,
with
I
Malkin.
agree.
Yeah.
Well, here's where I disagree with you. I think, well, like yourself, Bo Bennett has never done anything. Okay, you're getting this taken away from you.
We had the sponsors wanted 3 minutes of airtime.
That's fair. He's like a child here. Bo Bennett hasn't beat anybody yet. He hasn't proven anything. He's always been injured. It's a guy, and we've talked about his potential for a long time now, but you have to give him the opportunity once he gets his legs back after being out for a while. You have to give him the opportunity as a top 6 forward. We'll see if he turns out to be the player that everybody thinks he can be. Like yourself, I'm a little skeptical, but I think it's worth a shot. I actually thought the changing of lines came off as a little bit desperate because that happened in the New York Rangers game when the Penguins were down 5-0, and Mikey Johnson kind of panicked and flipped lines and started changing stuff around. That came off as a little desperate to me. I thought that was maybe a little unnecessary. We'll see how it goes, though. I guess for Hornquist, he was kind of laughing because he's like, oh, he goes off the line with Crosby, and now he's on Malkin's line. So It's like not a bad situation to be in. We'll see, though, if he can keep the production up. He certainly has on the power play.
Right.
And that's really all you need.
Yeah, I see. I mean, I know Hornquist was brought in predominantly to play on that Malkin line, but when you have the chemistry with Crosby, like, why mess with it? I understand Dupuis has played there for forever. I understand Dupuis is somebody that Crosby likes playing with. I mean, you could run down the list of pros and cons. There's going to be more pros than cons for anybody to play with Sidney Crosby. The problem is, if you ever think that Bo Bennett is going to play with Sidney Crosby, that's the worst combination you could ever have. Like, they've openly said they don't like playing with each other. Bo Bennett can't shoot. Crosby doesn't really enjoy shooting all too much. So you have two guys who are just going to sit there and play patty cake with the puck, and then Kunitz is just kind of like, whatever.
Yeah, no, I think the first line has to be a combination of Crosby, Kunitz, Dupuis, or Crosby, Kunitz, Hornquist.
And that's it. And leave it there.
And you can try Bennett with Gino. I don't think Como is a long-term solution on the second line, although he has played all right. I've been a little down on him, but he's actually played pretty well there. But he's more of a bottom 6 guy at the end of the day.
He hasn't done anything yet where it's like, wow, he really doesn't. Like, wow, we really need a new left winger for Malkin, or everything needs switched around. That's my issue with it.
And additionally, there's been a lot of talks, and it sounds like it's basically a done deal that Paul Martin's going to get moved here likely I've heard before Christmas, but
that's insane.
Definitely before the trade deadline. In large part due to the return they can get with him and his contract's up.
I don't agree with it. I don't agree with that whatsoever.
I mean, that's a whole other topic. I was just going to make it a point that they might, in the deal, be looking to get a better winger for Gino. So that question might be answered.
We're scoring like over 3.5 goals a game. It doesn't come down, like, haven't we learned as Penguin fans, it doesn't come down to scoring in the playoffs. It comes down to defense. It comes down to a good puck-moving defenseman in each pairing, and you're going to rely on Simon Desprez and Rob Scuderi 82 games into the year. I'm just saying it's a little ridiculous to say let's go get another scoring winger.
No,
it is insane. Actually.
I do not disagree with you, but you also just went on a rant about how Bo Bennett really doesn't fit in the top 6 and kind of implied that they need a better solution there.
They don't. I'm perfectly fine with Blake Como playing there. And people are going to say, oh my God, Blake Como over 78 games or however many games he plays this year, he's not going to produce. But we're not asking Blake Como to produce. We don't need people to produce on that line. That line produces just like by being that line. It's like Crosby's line. They're just going to score because that's like what they do that. Like you could put, and this isn't an exaggeration, you could put Marcel Gottsch could center that second line with Malkin and Hornquist, and that line would still produce. So that's what I don't know. I just don't like. So who are you going to get? That's what I want people to like sit here and tell me. Trade Martin and get who? And then we're just going to take on this massive contract after signing Fleury, and everyone will bitch and moan about Letang, and we can't get rid of Letang. Well, Mata's Letang light, so like we're gonna have to pay Mata here in 2 years. So like,
well, my thing is this:
hello.
is that they also have like a million defensive prospects down there. So
That is true.
Keeping a heavy contract like Paul Martin, and knowing you're probably not going to be able to resign him, you want to get something in return for that. So
That's
whether
true.
it's a defenseman that's ready to play in the playoffs, maybe a cheaper guy that,
But like if we go to crankshaft,
well, yeah, and I mean it's tough. We'll see what they decide to do with that. But end of rant. Big win for the Jonathan Quickies over Cologne Ow. Let's jump to the next game now. We'll go over Blake Wheelher versus Goodnight Jim Kite. Another loss for the Kites. They're down to 1-5.
That was Kite with a T, not with 2 Ks, but not anti-Semitic.
A relatively close matchup here, decided by about 8 points. Blake Wheeler gets a big win. And look at his top scorer, Mr. Blake Wheeler himself.
A good player.
So 14 points out of him this week. The leading scorer for the Kites was James Van Riemsdyk with 13.8. But another loss here, they dropped down to 1-5. And for them, it's one of these things. Like, do you care enough to go make a deal? I mean, like,
no.
Because you can't just sit. I mean, it's a long season, and you can say, well, things are going to turn around. But if you've won one of your first 6 games, I mean, you got to look to change something up. Whether that's waiver wire, which apparently they tried last week and didn't really work.
Well, they didn't really realize how it worked.
Yes, yeah, that was part of the issue as well. But I don't know. I think you shop around, look to make a deal here. Maybe try to improve your team. Maybe trade one of your better players and look to acquire maybe 2 or 3 guys in a deal.
Well, yeah,
get some depth that's going to add more than just your top end talent.
Do we know if Kurt watches this?
Kurt Ott?
Yeah. Does he watch these? Do you get any feedback from him?
He'll usually text me and just say podcast is up, and he usually is like cool. So
Kurt, I'm gonna probably send a trade your way. You're 2-4. I'm gonna look to give you a big name guy, and if Eric took a look at your roster, he would probably, or anybody on our fantasy football team, they know who I want off your roster. But I'm looking to ship you one big name to maybe get 2 back.
I'm gonna say spoiler alert. He has like the same initials, same letter. T squared.
It is T squared. Okay. That is correct.
All right, so a big win for the boss man. He jumps up to 3-3. Goodnight Jim Kite down to 1-5. We'll see if they shake things up a little bit this week and moving forward. And from a 1-5 team to another 1-5 team, onto our final matchup. It was Talkett's Book Service versus The Price is Right. Actually, a good matchup this week. The final score in this one, 128.7 to 116.3. Talkett's Book Service getting the win. So the Price is Right now down to 1-5. We did talk about Carey Price. It was his top scorer this week with 21.6. So happy to see Brent's getting some good production out of him, but it wasn't enough this week. Another guy, he's made 1 trade already, but you're sitting at 1-5. Maybe you look to make another move. I know he had some guys banged up last week. He's excited to get Taylor Hall back.
Halsey.
And that's going to help out his lineup.
He played last night.
And he's been real big on Roberto Luongo. Every time I see him, he's up my ass about how good Luongo is. And I know the Cats got a big win last night.
They did, yeah.
It was Luongo in.
Looks like it. 6 points.
In Anaheim.
No.
He was not. So they got a nice performance out of their backup goalie in Anaheim.
Is that still Clemens? No, Clemenson's on the Devils. I don't know who they're backing.
That guy is the worst, Clemenson. He's like a street hockey goalie with that equipment.
He looks terrible. He doesn't even look the part.
Like when you strap on those pads and we go down to Wiltshire, you look more like an NHL goalie than that guy does.
Damn straight I do.
So what's the latest on Taylor Hall?
He had a goal last night.
Oh, so he's back.
Yeah. He had 5 shots on a goal and a goal.
All right, there we go. So maybe that'll get him going. It looks like David Krejci is day-to-day, and that's a big part of his team as well. And that Datsuk up there as well day-to-day. So once he gets some guys back, he might actually be okay. But a slow start for him. For myself, a big win this week. I've talked about it before. I got a lot of confidence in this team. We're going to be soaring up the charts here over the next few weeks. All the confidence in the world, and things are going well when you have Nick Foligno. Well, things are either going really good or really bad when Nick Foligno is your leading scorer. We'll say that.
That is true. A Columbus Blue Jacket leading your scoring. Hey, your score. You must have had really a a real nice variety of scoring this week. If Valina's leading you with 13.5 and you ended up winning the week too.
With 128.7. So, yeah, contributions all around from Talkers Book Service. It's much appreciated. Let's real quick, your new team name, let's explain that to the league.
Todd Newken. Oh,
well,
that's the irony. We just got the text.
Right. For you and for everybody in the league, anytime Revita loses, you're going to get a name change. That's how he is. That's how he is in the Football League as well.
That is true.
This week is Todd Newken. He is referencing my adult league captain out in New Kensington. I've now played with him for 4 seasons. We have won 4 consecutive championships. But this guy is all business. It's a comedy show is what it is.
It's a comedy, but there are parts of it where it's like truly a drama.
Yeah,
it's a drom-com.
Yeah, there's never a dull moment with this guy. I'm currently getting text as we speak to my phone regarding getting yellow and purple old school Kings jerseys and renaming our team name to the Kings. I have no idea why that's being discussed and why that's relevant. And a quick story about him. We'll give out the when I first joined the team, he told me to get to the game early. He wanted to talk systems with me. He would text out the lines. I'm like, this guy's a nut job. And in my first game there, I'm at the bench, and goalie makes a stop. We're in the offensive zone.
Oh God,
Whistle blows, new face-off, and Todd turns around back to the bench and makes a sign mimicking something like this. Yeah, which I named the Scorpion. I literally audibly said, "What the fuck is that?" And the guy next to me said, "Wait, you don't know the signs?" And I was just like, "What did I get myself into?" I mean, I was questioning my existence at that point. That's Todd in a nutshell. He's out of control. I did a double take this morning as I looked over the standings and saw Todd Newken, because his name's just been blowing up on my phone about these new jerseys and about me not showing up to and he'll healthy scratch people. I mean, this guy is he's all in.
Oh yeah, and he has a 3 strikes rule or something like that.
Yeah, that's the new rule. So if you tell him you're going to be at the game and on the day of the game you cancel, that's strike 1. 3 strikes, you're off the team and you do not get refunded. So that's that name there for some clarification for you guys. 3:50 now, so we got to wrap it up. Let's. Do you have something you want to say as I pull up the lines here for the podcast pick'em?
I don't know. Just looking over the current playoff standings. Okay, the Atlantic Division is good. I mean, yeah. Montreal at 29 points, Tampa Bay at 26 points, Boston 22. Boston's real slow out of the gate. I don't want to I don't think it's people are saying it's all Zdeno Chara driven. It's not Zdeno Chara driven. I just think that the team they sometimes lack the ability to score goals. They'll go on real dry spells, and it's actually odd to watch them. Just not score. Seth Griffin's scoring goals through his legs, and then the rest of the game they get 7 shots on net. It's really odd. Then looking out west, St. Louis 25 points, Nashville 24. Here come the Hawks 21.
10-8.
Here come the Ducks. The Ducks took one on the chin last night. 6-1 loss at home to the frickin' Panthers. Oof. Panthers couldn't have traveled further across the country to play that game.
Whooped them.
Oof. And there are my Flames right there. 11-8, 24 points, 1 game back, 1 game out of first in the Pacific. That Pacific Division's nuts. Then you have Los Angeles, San Jose sitting at 22 points. The Pacific Division is literally just like Gladiator. It'll be war of attrition.
Yeah, that's tough.
And there's my awful pick of the year, Dallas. Thinking Dallas was going to be good.
They're in the basement.
They're in the basement, all right. They may get caught by the oil. There's only 1 game on tonight. Tonight's it is actually a great game though on NBC Sports. It's what's it called? Rag hosting Lightning. That's actually a really good game. And Montreal leading the league in points, 29. That team's good. Shows you what good goaltending can do for you. because Montreal for the longest time wasn't scoring, and that was like the running joke, and now they're scoring, and now Patrick Reddy's going bananas, and that team's going to be good. Dale Weiss had a shootout, or had a penalty shot goal. I mean, like, everything is like, that's the equivalent of like me having a penalty shot goal. Like, it's, and my excessive celebration penalty after last game, or what should have been probably.
Yeah, I mean,
there have been some antics recently.
Lastly, now my phone didn't want to load. Scores and Odds doesn't have the lines up for tomorrow since there's only one game tonight. Don't worry about it. We're gonna take a week off.
A week off? We can just go we can look tomorrow.
No, let's just take a week off because it's been
hellacious.
It's been bad. I think you've won 2 of 4, and I have yet to win. I want a week off. Instead, let's talk hockey. Let's talk gambling. Let's talk what happened last night in a game, Blackhawks versus the Stars. And we kind of figured this out a little too late, but it was Brad Richards' 1,000th game. And they bring him out before the game, big ceremony, the waterworks. You got the
silver stick they gave him.
Yeah, the silver stick. You got the newborn baby out there with massive headphones on.
Oh my God, this thing had
no business being out there.
Beats and Dre. Yeah. It was bananas.
When you see that, I mean, that's a cue. I mean, you bet the Hawks. You bet the Hawks. You bet a lot on the Hawks. In those games, historically, I'm like 50-0. And the one that comes to mind is after the Lakers owner died, Buss. Kobe came out before the game, Jerry Buss or whatever his name was.
Oh, I have no idea.
Yeah, he died. This was like a year or two ago. And right before the start of the game on ESPN, they do like this big opening ceremony, like honoring him. Kobe Bryant comes out with the microphone and gives like this emotional speech. And I immediately, I picked up the phone, I texted my guys, I said, get me in large on these boys. You knew they were coming to play that night.
Right.
And sure enough, long story short, I was sleeping by halftime that game was over. I'm disappointed we missed that one last night, because you got to know when the emotions are involved, when it's, everybody's kind of coming together as one, that's when you got to know, as a gambler, let's get on this team tonight. It appears you have found the lines real quick. Just name your team. Actually, I'm first this week. I'll take Nashville at Toronto.
Tomorrow?
Yep.
Oh, I am definitely going to take... There's no reason on earth Anaheim should be a dog at Calgary. I'm taking Calgary.
Okay. There you have it.
My Flames. I think I've run Flames. I run Flames and oil all year, I'm pretty sure.
And typically, I would say you don't get rich betting on the Flame and the oil, but you're up pretty large on me in this podcast pick. I have absolutely no room to talk. I would take Toronto tomorrow night. Just fade me at this point. You're up 375 to nothing are the total points. I can feel the money sliding out of my pocket to purchase you that Simply Grilled chicken sandwich at Red Robin. It's halfway out of my pocket at this point.
It's so good.
I need a rally. Hopefully, Pecorine and the Prez can get it done for me tomorrow night. But that about does it here.
Yeah.
The Week 6 recap video. Thank you for joining us. And we'll catch you next week. Best of luck to everybody in Week 7. And we will see you next time.
Let's go, Pens. I should let you try to say something that time. You didn't.
Go Pens, baby!